Okay, this is part 3 of lesson number 1. The last part, we just want to talk briefly about the discriminant. So if you remember, the discriminant is the part of the quadratic formula that's under the root sign. So b squared minus 4ac. Okay. So instead of using the entire quadratic formula, we can use the discriminant to figure out how many solutions a quadratic has. So we can use the discriminant to figure out if we were going to have no solutions, one solution, or two solutions. Okay, so on the last lesson I showed a couple of sketches of quadratics, right? So if there's no solutions, it means the parabola doesn't touch the x-axis. If there's one solution, it means the vertex is on the x-axis. And if there's two solutions, it means it touches the x-axis twice. So when we're looking at the discriminant, we have three possible solutions, okay, or scenarios. So if I do the discriminant, I do b squared minus 4ac, and I end up with a positive number, so greater than 0, right? So this means it's positive. That means I have two real roots. Okay, if I do b squared minus 4ac and I end up with 0 as my answer, that means I have two equal roots, right? Which means there's only one solution. If that's easier for you to remember, one solution. Okay, it's a different way of saying it. And if I do b squared minus 4ac and I end up with a negative number, so I wrote here less than 0, so negative, that means we have no real roots, right? Because we can't square root a negative number. You'll get an error on your calculator. So when you're asked to determine how many solutions a parabola has, you don't have to actually solve. You just have to substitute in b, a, and c and figure out if you have a positive number, a 0, or a negative number. Okay, so for example, a question like this, determine the number of solutions. So it doesn't say determine the solution, it says how many are there. So what we have to do is we have to substitute in a, b, and c into the discriminant. So for this solution, or for this equation, a is 1, b is negative 10, and c is 25. So if I put that into the discriminant, I'm going to be able to tell right away how many solutions this parabola has, or this quadratic has. Okay, so negative 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 25. Okay, make sure you put the numbers into brackets when you substitute so that you make sure the negatives go in the proper place, so you don't make a mistake. Okay, so we have 100 minus 100, so 0. So because the discriminant equals 0, that means there's only one solution. Okay, so one root. Okay, which means the vertex is on the x-axis. And if you take a look at the quadratic here, you can see it's a perfect square trinomial, which means our answer when we factor it is going to give us only one bracket. Okay, the second one here, before we can use the discriminant, you have to put it into standard form. Otherwise, it's not going to make any sense. You're going to get the wrong answer. So 3t squared plus 13t minus 10 equals 0. Okay, we substitute a, b, and c into the discriminant. So the discriminant equals 13 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 10. Okay, so that's 169 plus 120. Okay, so we're going to get a positive answer here, which means we have two real roots. So I haven't figured out what those roots are. I've just shown that there are two real roots. Okay, so just make sure you're reading the question carefully. If it wants to know how many solutions are, use the discriminant. If it's actually asking you to solve for the roots, then you have to factor or use the entire quadratic formula. Okay, so end of the video. What you're going to work on tomorrow in class is part A homework, and we have our review test on Wednesday.